Dan and Corey here, welcoming you into Libservative.
The great fundamental issue now before our people. We, the people, cannot turn back.
Welcome in once again to another rousing edition of Libservative, the show of intellectual idiots fostering political and cultural literacy. I, as always, am Dan Griffin.
And I'm Corey Walsh. You threw me off because usually you say he's Corey Walsh, and then I say, and he's Dan Griffin.
Am I that out of it? Did I really just do that?
Yeah, I've been doing that for damn near 80 episodes.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna tell the people right now for this episode. This might be my worst or best episode ever because I'm exhausted after a week of travel and a ridiculous work schedule. So you're gonna have to bear with it. I'm mostly just here tonight for moral support. So Corey's gonna carry the show. Belle's gonna chime in a little bit. And we're just gonna get through this hour. That's what's gonna happen. Hour and a half, whatever we decide to do. But before we get that far, Corey, tell the people where they can find us.
Libservative Podcast is found on all social media and podcast platforms. Our website is libservativeshow.com. We can be found at Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Instagram and Twitter at LibservativePod. And our TikTok videos can be found at Libservative Podcast, and you can reach out directly at libservativepod@gmail.com. Subscribe today. You know, it's funny. Every time I read that, I look at the email address, and I'm like, oh, I should probably check that. And then it's like, no, stupid. You can't do that right now. You're live on the show. And then once the show's over, I usually forget to check it. So hopefully.
We're literally telling our listeners we don't check our email.
No, we do. I'm gonna do it right now.
and I'm gonna end the show by saying I'm Corey Walsh.
and he's Dan Griffin.
By the time this thing is all said and done. But yeah, the reason for my exhaustion is because it's really exhausting going to Florida to learn how to be a fascist. So that's where I was last week. And I can tell
fascist.
No, here's why. This is the conclusion I came to. Because every time I've ever been to Florida before, it's always been on like the ocean side, the Atlantic side, right? And a little bit further south, like everywhere between like Daytona and Miami, right? I've been pretty much all up and down that coast where it's, a little bit hotter, a little bit more humid, and it's always been at like a weird time of year, right? So this year I go in March where it's still, not as cold up here, but also not warm yet, right?
Oh, and Belle's here too.
I said that.
Oh, hi. Sorry.
I said he was here. I'm trying to give credit.
I was checking our emails.
But the thing is, when it's 82 degrees in March and you're sitting outside in a lanai by a pool, it is really, really easy to put up with fascism. That's why Florida's able to do it, because people just don't really care. Plus, there's a lot of blue hairs that don't really realize the fact that fascism is coming to Florida. And then it's funny, I say that because, Ron Desantis is also promoting things like school of choice and things that we actually support. The problem is he's just stuck on the culture war bullshit. So that's what I was doing. I was learning to become a fascist, which is basically sit in warm weather in mid-March and you'll be okay with it. That's probably what happened to the Germans, except it's never 82 degrees there. Celsius or Fahrenheit? I hope it's not 82 degrees Celsius. You fucking boil. Yeah. Anyway. What did you do? What have you been consuming, Corey? What have you been up to? What are you drinking? Talk to me. I've missed you.
So now that my heart's all aflutter. I've been consuming Alphabet Boys, the podcast, but keeping up with the J.K. Rowling one. I haven't really been watching too much TV, to be honest. Been consuming a lot of building shit with my kid. And then we consumed the Q&A with White Boy Rick.
That's right. See, that's how exhausted I am.
I'm just drinking some Miller Lights. I'm not even tapping into the bourbon.
Me neither. I'm going straight beer tonight because I don't want to fall asleep. I am drinking Old Nation's Boss Tweed,
Nice.
a Michigan brew, and 9.3% alcohol. So I've already had one. By the time I'm done with this, our fans will be happy to know I shouldn't make it all the way to half in the bag. I should be like, I don't know, maybe a third-ish, maybe,
we need to get
3/8, something like that.
Yeah, we need to get like a meter that Dan just like a sliding scale behind him that he moves. Like I'm trying to get my arm behind.
Just do a printout of his body.
We can let the people decide. We can let the people decide. Is it better when I'm more drunk or less drunk? Get at us.
Let us know in the comments.
Just don't email us because we won't check it.
I was going to say email us.
No, I'll check it. We just won't see it right away. I'm drinking some Miller Lite. Got the capped Miller Lite. Yesterday the weather wasn't half bad, so I was able to sneak off and get a round in of disc golf. And that's all I'm drinking. What are you drinking, Bell?
Same thing as you, bud.
But it's in a glass.
It's in a glass. I have both.
Bell only drinks out of glass when he's at the beach.
Well, yeah. That's where all the glass goes anyways.
Or on the river. Oh, man. Anyway. So the White Boy Rick show. I think White Boy Rick is at least a semi-national deal, right? I think it's very, very important and historical to Detroit lore, but there's been one documentary I believe already made. There's another one on the way that White Boy Rick himself is actually a part of, and then there was a really bad movie with Matthew McConaughey in it
that I haven't seen, but White Boy Rick says is bullshit. Because remember when he was explaining it, the writer that he's working on the current documentary with was supposed to be the writer for the movie, but then something happened and there was a falling out where that writer left the movie set. So White Boy Rick kind of walked away from it when that happened.
Right. So give the brief synopsis of the White Boy Rick story for those of you who, or for our listeners that aren't as familiar. And all I'll say before you do that is it's basically just another reason not to trust the feds.
Yes. Yeah. So I learned last night like a little bit what everyone says about him. But so according to White Boy Rick, there's a lot of lore around his name and stuff like that. But he was charged with selling coke, and he was put away for 30 years at the age of 17. He's
the first minor in U.S. history to get sentenced to life.
Yeah, first minor in U.S. history to be sentenced to life, and he actually got was he exonerated or he's just out on parole?
He's done. Yeah, he's done.
Yeah. So at 17, so he was approached by FBI and stuff like that to be.
He was younger than 17. He got
when he was convicted. He was 17. Yeah. But I think the court case started at like 15 or 16 or something.
Yeah.
He was just dealing coke, and it's like a kid that was probably in 9th, 10th grade.
Walking around with Krugerrands in his pocket.
Yeah. And he was an informant for the FBI, but he wasn't snitching on other dope boys. He was snitching on dirty cops in the city of Detroit. He grew up on the east side of Detroit. And that's one of the reasons why when his case and he got busted, they tried to make sure he was put away for life because he ruined careers and lives of people like Gil Hill, who was a city council member. He fucked over Coleman Young's daughter, which, I mean, in a good way, he fucked her over because they were all corrupt as shit. And he got put away for 30 years. And then after the 30 years of him trying to get out, they tried to pin a cold case murder on him to keep him in because they didn't want him to get out, because when he did, he was going to end up meeting Charlie Leduff and then having events like he did the other night. And so, because Charlie Duff asked him, he's like, "Why didn't you take a shiv in the neck, for being a snitch to the FBI?" He's like, "It's because I wasn't snitching on other people." He said, like, my friends, other dope dealers and stuff like that, are out in the crowd. He goes, "They're all here with me."
I mean, yeah, that's Rick's story, that he never snitched on other dope dealers. And I mean, I have no reason not to believe him, but obviously,
right.
There's a
the
lot
reason
to the
why
story.
I'm apt to believe him is because of the fact that prison life is fucking brutal and it's fucking tough, especially on snitches. And the fact that he survived, I think, goes to show there is a little bit of clout to what he said.
Yeah, and so it makes a lot of sense, because he said that the biggest reason why he was in prison under this charge, even after what was it? Was it the 1 kilo law? Or what was the law?
Yeah,
Where if you were carrying a certain amount, it was an automatic life sentence. Yeah. Which, by the way, is a racist law, if we're being honest with everyone.
Right. And what's also interesting is his finger, like he said, the coke they found, he never touched. Charlie Duff tried to clarify and asked if it was his. He goes, "Dude, I never touched it."
But no, he did say it was his.
Yeah, he said it was his. Yeah.
He said he was responsible for it, but he never touched it.
Yep.
And so, I guess, long story short, he's basically like, they basically pretended to find my prince on these drugs that were never found. Yeah, and when asked why he was in prison so long, because he was the only one, I believe, and maybe Bell can correct me if I'm wrong, he was the only one that was still left in prison for that charge as a minor when the whatever, I can't remember the name of it, but the 1 kilo, the no tolerance 1 kilo life law was revoked. Yeah,
when all the other people were released and stuff like that. There were hitmen in prison who were in prison a shorter amount of time than he was.
But what Rick, 9 people that were in prison for less time than him.
Say that one more time, Bella. You cut out for me.
There are people that were in prison for less time than him that killed 9 people.
Yeah, for murder. For even just for one murder is ridiculous.
Right.
But he basically came out and said that he was snitching on corruption, and he named Gil Hill by name. You might remember Gil Hill from Beverly Hills Cop fame. He was in all 3 of those films. Former law enforcement officer for the city of Detroit, and then ultimately a city council member. And basically, he said that he was trying to snitch on Gil Hill for covering up a murder. And you listen to all this stuff, and if you're anti-law enforcement, which I think all 3 of us on this show are to a degree, obviously there is nuance to it. But like the way we police in this country and the corruption that is involved with it, I don't think I would be wrong if I said that we are all against the current way that we police in this country. And so when White Boy Rick says that, I just believe him. You know what I mean? Like whenever, I don't think we're ever gonna know like the full story, the full truth. There's gonna be a lot of.
But that's the story. Is how he sees it. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you think about it, his side of the story just does make more sense. Why is this fucking guy in prison for 30 years for a drug crime that everybody else gets out of prison for after the laws drop?
And here's what I think also adds weight to his side of the story. It's the same thing when we talk about election fraud with Dominion. If someone did that and then got 30 years, when they get out, the first thing they're going to try to do is get away from it unless they really feel slighted, to where he's still trying to make waves and is suing the FBI and everyone for how they did them.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a major lawsuit right now for I think like $100 million or something like that he is currently trying to sue the government over the way they treated him as a minor.
Yeah, and that's fair. So yeah, this is if you're not familiar with the White Boy Rick story, I recommend, if you're a listener of this show and you're from out of state, look into this guy. Look into
wild.
Look into Rick Wershey. Don't watch. Well, Watch the movie after you do the research because the movie might be a little bit funny.
I've never seen it. Yeah, so I don't know. Matthew McConaughey is one of my favorite actors. I didn't know he was even in it. But
let's just say Hollywood took liberties with the story.
yeah, that's what it sounded like.
Embellishment.
But
it was super interesting, and Charlie Leduff is a gem. Dan and I actually got to meet him after the show. We met him at the bar.
He's the nation's best investigative reporter, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, he's up. I would put him up there with a Matt Taibbi, a Aaron Mate.
Here's the difference between.
He's out here.
Go ahead, Bill.
Let's say he's out here taking shots.
That's
shots to learn shit.
That's the thing. That's what makes Charlie, I think, a little bit better than like a Taibbi or a Greenwald. Those guys are fantastic journalists, and they're the best of the best of the best in the business. But Charlie's also, not only is he an investigative journalist, he's an entertainer at the same time.
Right. He's eating. Yeah. Remember like there was a story he did about seniors who were so poor they're eating cat food, and he's on video eating cat food with the old people and stuff like that. And he's in the American flag Speedo on the border and has cartel riding up to him on a jet ski, giving him the finger across the neck, saying they're gonna kill him. Like he's in the shit. He rode down in a canoe on the Rouge River. For anyone who's not from the area, the Rouge River is just a really, really nasty, dirty river. It's basically a runoff that cuts through all of like the really nasty industrial parks of
refineries and whatnot
and stuff. Yeah,
downriver.
Yeah, it's downriver. It's all our poop goes. It all goes downriver.
Tastes like corn. Yeah, so check out the White Boy Rick story. It is a fun story. If you like the show, I feel like you would like that story because it's very.
So I have something else to add to it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I found this interesting, and if you remember, we met Charlie Leduff at the bar, and we were hanging out with him. I totally simped out. I was like, "Oh my god, Charlie! I've been an idol since I was little."
Will you stop name dropping?
But because I met him.
Charlie. I can see hearts in your eyes.
I know, that's what I said. I totally simped out. I'm acknowledging that. And we met him, and I tell him like, dude, I've been an idol since I was little, this and that. And he found it interesting when we mentioned to him that our city, my city, Sterling Heights, the mayor, the chief of police, one of the judges, and city council and everything was there. And like my speculation is like, why? To keep tabs.
Not only were they there, they were like there as if it was like a night out among friends.
Right. They were all sitting together. And I listened to Charlie's show the next day when he was doing his little roundup on it. And apparently like a bunch of people from the Detroit Police Department were there. People from the DEA were there. People from the Detroit City Council were there. People from the school board were there. There was a lot of people interested in this. And it's like, why were all of these people interested in a drug dealer telling his story other than to either send a message, to keep tabs on what he was saying, and all of that? And the reason why I'm saying all this is because when we met our boy, Charlie, when we were talking to him, he mentioned to us, because we told him that this is the kind of stuff we like to do or whatever. And he said, just always ask the questions. He goes, just ask the questions. And so it put a fire under my ass. And so I reached out to a source. I'm trying to be an investigative journalist here. I'm not going to mention his name.
What is happening?
And
Journalism,
I asked him,
Dan.
And I asked him, like, why was everyone from Sterling Heights there? Was there any sort of relationship, altercation, or interaction with Rick? And it ended up being, from what I could tell, a nothing story. But he explained to me, and he said that we just think it was a fascinating story. No one in the office now in Sterling Heights, other than Miss Koski, was in office when Rick was arrested or sent to jail. And that we do have some Detroit.
Can I just add, that still seems like one too many.
Right.
When you're talking about 30 plus years ago. Yeah.
And he mentioned that we do have some officers who used to work in Detroit, but police officers in Sterling Heights retire after 25 years. So none that were there when when he was there. But then he said he was frankly surprised to see all of them there, and he made a last decision to come. And so yeah, I just found it interesting. So I can only speculate that our city people wanted to get ahead of the curve in case anything got brought up about our city, but nothing did. I don't think there's a story there for our city, but it's interesting that DEA and everyone was there to listen to what this man had to say when they spent a very large concerted effort to make sure he was locked away for the rest of his life.
Very, very interesting. Yeah,
it is interesting, right? Why are you guys here?
That's what makes the story interesting. Is that
what makes the DPD want to spend their Saturday night listening to a dope dealer?
Well, and it speaks to the issue and the distrust and the mistrust that people have for law enforcement in this country. And and Bell was involved in the conversation last night where we were kind of going back and forth on. We now know people that are hard leftists, and people that at least come from the right. That are both very, very mistrusting of law enforcement, 100%. and like so that is the thing that people like Jimmy Dore talk about and others when it comes to when you have people that are supposed to be politically polar opposites agreeing on something like, hey, policing sucks. Now you can have disagreements within that agreement, which is like, hey, what's the solution? Like, is it reform? Is it just completely getting rid of cops? Like, but you have the fundamental agreement that policing in the United States is fucked up.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, for example, like last night you had an interaction with someone like Eric. We had him as a guest on our show.
Long time ago.
Go
back and listen.
I'd like to get him back on the show. Because that interaction was like, this would be interesting to talk about with him. And so a long time ago, we had a man named Eric on the show, and he's a libertarian. And then we also had Tristan from the city of Detroit, who we would probably call a damn near a communist. He's definitely a socialist. He's very, very left. And when we talked to him about the police, and then we mentioned to him, like, now we think it's just a branding issue about defunding the police, and we think reform. And he's like, no, I want the police gone.
Mm-hmm.
Last night with the interaction with Eric, he essentially said the same damn thing.
Yeah,
and now these
more or
are
less
people who have very, very different politically ideological like thought processes, and. Here they both are. I almost want to get them on the show at the same time. Yeah, I think that would be interesting to have a little.
I would like that.
And they both fundamentally agree that the police just are fucking terrible.
Yeah, one of these men worked for the Trump campaign, and the other one
protested against him.
Basically, led some protesting during the all of the summer of 2020. Protests throughout all of the United States. You want to talk about two guys that come from polar opposite sides of the political spectrum that definitely agree on this one issue, and that's it. Like, it really just these radical independent movements, which is what I have actually begun to refer to myself as. I'm just referring to myself as a radical independent because. I have some conservative views that I have some a lot of liberal views that I have, and I have some libertarian views that I have. So, like, I think that's the movement, producing more radical independence. And I think that's how you get these people together to talk. And that is what scares the shit out of not only law enforcement, but the establishment and the status quo as a whole, which is why we're arguing about things like who can go into what bathroom, or where it's appropriate to have drag shows. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the culture war nonsense is such a distraction. And I hate how well it works because it captures us a lot all the time. But you and I are always, the three of us are always sending texts about culture war bullshit because it's what everybody's talking about.
On it, but it makes so much noise it just consumes the conversation.
Yeah, even when you're making fun of it and calling it stupid, you're still talking about it.
You're just wasting time that you could be talking about something else. Yeah,
that's the whole plan. So check out the White Boy Rick story, if you're not familiar, if you're not a native Detroiter, it is maybe, at least in the last 30 years, the top story when it comes to, I would say, like, Detroit folklore. Would you guys agree with that?
Detroit lore.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He's even Charlie Leduff in the interview he's like, he looked at White Boy Rick, he's like, you're a myth.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, like, how interesting that would feel, like, to just be viewed as just a living myth?
Right. Where the story is just bigger than you are.
Yeah, it's very.
Remember, like, people, like, the way the media described him was like this cartel, like, kingpin who was murdering people and all, like, they ran him through the dirt when he was really just a cocky kid who was making a shit ton of money dealing cocaine. I mean, that's really all he was. That was it. Nothing Dude, I like
more to
his
it.
rebuttal too, because Charlie Leduff said to him, he goes, like, regardless, like, cocaine is a death business.
Yeah.
The product you're pushing, a lot of people died to get it to you. A lot of people are being killed over this. It's a death business.
People are dying using it.
Yeah, and he goes, it's no different than the opioid epidemic. He goes, these big opioid companies are doing the same damn thing, and none of them are locked up.
The only difference, I would say that the only difference is that the legalization of opioids makes it so that, the people delivering the big shipments don't have to be killed in transit because it's legal. You can just make it in a fucking factory.
Yeah, it's monopolized and they're protected by police as they make those transit of a bunch of drugs.
Boy, isn't that interesting?
Isn't it ironic?
Don't you dare say bad things about Alanis Morissette.
I'm not. I'm literally quoting her. It's like rain on your wedding day.
You do that no justice. She's
all right,
queen.
guys. If you never heard Alanis Morissette, go listen to her song "Ironic" and tell me who you think sang the song better.
She is an artist. She is Queen Bee in my eyes. Does that make me racist? Because isn't Beyonce supposed to be Queen Bee? So I'm racist for making a white Canadian lady Queen Bee.
Well, shit, now it is.
God, Florida's really rubbed off on me.
Yeah, I could tell. I could fucking tell. The next thing you're gonna want is you're gonna lock up remove liquor licenses and lock up drag queen people for existing.
Is that next?
That's a good segue.
Is that next?
Yeah, DeSantis the fascist.
Bell was the one that gave us this story, I think.
No, this is Corey.
This was Corey. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So,
you know me, the investigative journalist.
I really, the Bud Light version of an investigative journalist.
I'll take it.
Miller Lite.
Yeah, the Miller Lite version of an investigative journalist.
The Natty Light version of an investigative.
Just call me Natty Daddy from now on.
And has a Corey.
I really have a problem with the fact that the banner that you put up there is DeSantis the fascist, because I can already see people just looking at that and going, I can't listen to these guys. They don't like my guy. You're forcing people away with that banner, Corey. And actually, on second thought, I love it.
I don't care.
You don't need to be here. Why are we calling?
If someone's been listening to our show now, 80 episodes in, as we just shit on like Democrats and stuff, and they're like, "Yeah, these guys are great," and then they leave because we're ridiculing the other side.
Fuck them.
Political and cultural literacy.
Like what we say, like our show is like.
Well, fuck you, but listen.
Yeah. Fuck you. Listen to my show. Okay.
So can we? I was gonna say, so can we chalk this up under culture war bullshit that is distracting us from the actual issues?
It is. It's the bullshit culture war becoming literal fascism.
I was about to say, when it becomes real life, that's when it matters.
Yeah.
This is real life.
Yeah, this is making it real life.
Precedent.
Yeah. Yeah, that's. Well, no. Okay, so let me rephrase that. What I'm saying is Ron DeSantis using culture war bullshit to gain more clout in the presidential race. That's really more what I meant. I didn't mean to say that it doesn't matter. It definitely matters.
By implementing fascist tendencies.
So the story is that Ron DeSantis would like to remove or revoke the liquor license of a Miami hotel for essentially for hosting drag shows.
Yeah.
And which is fucking censorship, which is a civil liberties violation. It's literally everything that the cultural right likes to bitch about the woke mob doing.
Yeah.
It's cancel culture. That is what this is. You are never going to convince me that like drag shows are bad. Is it like honestly even if a parent decides to bring their kids there, right? Because now you're getting into the territory of telling other people how to parent their children.
You remember when Glenn Youngkin won the North Carolina governorship?
That was Virginia, but yeah.
Or Virginia, I mean,
yeah.
one of those states south of the Mason-Dixon line.
Actually,
North Carolina isn't. Nope, North Carolina
is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And Youngkin won because people were saying that parents shouldn't have a say in their children's like schooling. And so for Youngkin to win on that premise, now Governor DeSantis is doing the same fucking thing down in Florida by making daddy government be the one in charge of how you raise your kids. Would I bring my kid to a great drag show? No.
Probably not.
No, I wouldn't. But I would still advocate for the right for other parents to.
If you bring your kid to watch a performance of Screwed Off the Red Nipples Reindeer, you are an asshole. But it shouldn't be illegal.
Right. That's kind of on you. And like everything that I've seen about, I mean, look, you'll get like the occasional like libs of TikTok video where there's some screwy shit going on where it's like, okay, that's kind of fucked up. But like most of the things I've seen, even with like drag queen story hour, it's literally just a dude in a dress reading a book. That's all it is. That's all. It's a little weird, like whatever. Like I don't think I'd bring my kid to something like that. But I don't, if you want to take your kid to go to drag queen story hour, maybe the parents have fun at it. Who knows? Have you ever been to a drag event? Have either of you guys ever been to one?
Yes.
I've been to. Have I? I think I've been to drag queen bingo. Yeah,
drag queen bingo. That's what I've been. It's been years. It's been a few years since I've been there. Here locally in downtown Royal Oak, and yeah, and it's late at night. They serve booze. It's definitely sexual, but it's like comedically sexual. You know what I mean? Like I don't like look at these drag queens and go, "Oh man, I feel a little ridiculous for being here." But it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's the government trying to tell people how to live their lives in any case, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, is just 100% wrong.
Is that better, Bill?
Yeah.
Oh, damn, that's a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, I was on the wrong mic setting, so hopefully we can fix that in post. So whatever, it is what it is. I'm happy to be back on the. Yeah, it switched over to my headphones, I think, right before we started the show. So,
I heard it for a little bit.
Fuck, didn't you say anything to me?
I just caught it.
34 minutes in. We're 34 minutes
in.
That
was me that said it. I'm the one that asked you.
Oh, I thought it was Bell. Sorry.
No, it was me. It was your boy.
I'm here. I'm on the correct setting. I will put a disclaimer in the pre-show about my mic being fucked up for the first 34 minutes of the show. Please bear with us.
Here
we are.
Important.
It didn't sound terrible, but it sure wasn't no. It sure wasn't no sure, Mike.
That's right. Well, maybe that's why we're starting to get more watchers here. Happy to be back. Anyway, what the fuck are we talking about? Drag queen bingo or some shit?
DeSantis being a fascist.
Oh,
trying to remove the liquor license of a business who made a contractual agreement with a third party to just rent out their venue.
Yeah, that's called civil liberties, and that's a remarkably libertarian virtue when it comes to that. When it comes to civil liberties, so it's really what's really interesting about that is that I've gotten the idea in recent, I don't know, months, basically since it was it's been more and more clear that Ron DeSantis is going to basically run for president in 2024. I've seen a lot of libertarians that like Ron DeSantis, and I understand it from certain perspectives, right? He's pushing for school of choice. You know, he's fighting against censorship from the left. But where I feel like libertarians fall short is
he really? Because he's just banning books.
No, well, so I'm talking about like the quote unquote woke censorship, right? He's fighting against wokeness. The mob rule censorship is basically what I'm talking about. And I think libertarians tend to miss the censorship that's being put forth by Ron DeSantis. I could be wrong. Like, this isn't every libertarian. I know lots of libertarians that are, not exactly a huge fan of Ron DeSantis for those reasons. But I think that's where libertarians kind of get stuck in the mud sometimes. They tend to pick a side, like, or at least like how do you say that word? Peripherally pick a side on the left or the right, depending on the current culture. And I feel like Ron DeSantis is the kind of the guy that they go towards because they don't want Trump. They obviously don't want Biden. But what is Ron DeSantis to you? Ron DeSantis is just another shitty option in a pool of shitty options.
Yeah, but shit like this, the way he went after Disney because Disney ideologically disagrees with him, all of this kind of stuff. Like I was saying to a Democratic friend at work today, like, I think that I might vote for Donald Trump in the primaries. Try to get him to become the Republican nominee to go against Biden. Because, like, what's the saying? It's like about your enemies. You'd rather have an enemy you know than an enemy you don't. We know what Trump's going to do. Trump only attacks people that attack him. Trump's never gone after specifically gay people. Now, people in the Republican Party that he represented and things like that, they have, but Trump hasn't. Trump was against the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Trump has this weird thing about him to where he, like, on the cultural side of things, it's not about like the actual cultural shit. It's when it's going after him. And DeSantis is a straight up fascist. Now, I disagree with Trump 1.5 million ways. If he actually became president, if he actually became the nominee, I wouldn't in turn vote for him in the general. But I'd rather him be the plan B, because my plan A is never going to win anyways because I'm voting third party. But I'd rather him win.
Vote. You're wasting
I'd rather
your vote.
Trump win than DeSantis. And you know what's also kind of fucking scary? That, like, after DeSantis came out and he like took a little jab at Trump and says he doesn't know anything about having dealing with the legalities of having to pay off a porn star that for hush money. He said something like that, but he said that he doesn't like the DA that's going after Trump and all of this stuff. But when he did that little jab against Trump, then Candace Owens, all of these, what's his name? Steve Bannon, I think even Ben Shapiro, not Ben Shapiro, but there were Zervanovich, whatever his name is or whatever.
Cernovich?
Yeah. All of a sudden, all of these people came out against DeSantis. Not because he's a fascist. Not because he's doing shit like this, making big government bigger by trying to make it smaller in some weird fucking dumb fucking way.
No, dude, he's expanding government under the guise of quote unquote fighting wokeness. Like, this is what drives me nuts about people that like Ron DeSantis. It is the old adage of you love when the government grows when it's on your side, which is why, which is why the Democratic Party has gotten so powerful, over this time. If you're fighting an enemy, it's okay to grow the government. And that's what both sides continue to do every election cycle, which is why the government is overbloated, which is why the IRS is whatever it is, 80,000 new employees.
I think you just perfectly encapsulated what neoconservatism and neoliberalism is.
Yes, they are working together to continue to grow the government. That is what Republicans and Democrats do, and they do it under the guise of fighting whatever the other party is. Yeah, the other side. Like we have to stop this. We have to stop this wokeness. Well, I really hate to break it to Ron DeSantis, but my 2023 prediction, call me fucking Daniel Damas, because my prediction at the beginning of the year for 2023 was that we are going to start to see the fall of quote unquote wokeism. And it is
whole
happening.
Platform is gone. Yeah. Oh yeah.
It is happening. The snake event, when the snake continues talking about wokeness, that word just makes me want to throw up every time I use it. When we continue to talk about that, the snake eating its own tail eventually consumes the entire snake. And that is what wokeness is doing right now.
Isn't that insane too, how bastardized that whole term has gotten? Wokeness,
like
being
like
woke.
Every other term.
Yeah, woke used to mean like not trusting the federal government, knowing what the church community is, knowing what MK Ultra is, knowing that the FBI spends a bunch of money on informants to fabricate crimes. That's what wokeness used to be. And then it got bastardized by the whole cultural war nonsense.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how the right does it?
The left does it too. Everyone's a racist. Everyone's a fascist. Everyone's a Nazi.
Yes. They've done it. They've bastardized the word racism. Everything is racist.
Bigot. Yeah, because when everyone's a racist, no one's a racist.
Right.
Bigot. Bigot.
Black people complain.
Bigot's a word that means nothing.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything.
Homophobe.
Doesn't mean anything. Transphobe doesn't mean anything.
Takes away from cases where it actually happens.
Yeah, it's like the woman who claims sexual assault that wasn't actually sexually assaulted to gain something.
The person who claims they were racially attacked.
Oh, like a Jesse Smollett. Yeah, like it completely fucking reduces the stories of the actual victims of these problems. And that's basically what quote unquote wokeism has become. I can't wait till we can stop using that word. I'm hoping within the next 4 to 5 years. I can't wait until that word is gone
months?
From our
years.
No, it'll still be around. It'll still be around. It'll still be around.
Pendulum. It's that pendulum swing. Where the outlash we're seeing from the left right now of trying to do all this stuff.
Yep.
Is as a result of Trump, and then the right freaking out is responding to the outcry from the left. What's up, Brighten Eyes? And I was thinking about that today, actually. Like, for so long, the LGBTQ community, now they've had definitely their trials and tribulations, the Stonewall riots, gay people being raped, or not raped, well, raped, but like murdered, all of this stuff that's happened to their story. Every group, has their story. All of this stuff happened to them. But we're at a time to where if that happens to them now, the law and the legal system is on their side. They have legislation that protects them with hate crimes and stuff. But they still cried out so much that they were the victim. And then they kept pushing this stuff to the point that people on the right, like DeSantis, are actually making them criminals again.
Yeah.
They cried so hard that they were being portrayed as criminals. Then I don't want to use the word cry because that's like a
Corey,
diminishing word. But you understand what I'm saying. Like, they push so hard on being the victim that they're making themselves the victim.
Like actually making themselves a victim.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's what we see. What we see from the right is my new favorite phrase. I've used. I mean, I actually haven't used it that much recently because it's starting to die down. It's woke derangement syndrome. It's no different than Trump derangement syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
It's the exact same thing. All it is
Hell yeah.
the reaction to, the wokeness of, fighting against Trumpism or whatever, which actually is a great segue. Unless you have something to add to that topic, I wanted to move on to Trump's supposed arrest. That should be fun.
Yeah, go ahead and pull that banner up. Or I'll pull it up.
All right, you got it. The Don and his trumped up charges.
You like that?
I do kind of like that.
Took me like 3 hours to do that.
I did. How long did it take you to think of that one?
Spent like 3 hours shading your upper lip.
Yeah. So if you've been living under a fucking mushroom for the last, I don't know, week and a half, after Trump's truth, saying that he said he was going to be arrested yesterday. We're recording this on Wednesday, March 22nd. As of now, he still has not been arrested. Various reports coming out that it might be later this week. I think the Daily Mail even said that it might, which is interesting that we're listening to the Daily Mail, but the Daily Mail saying it might be as late as sometime next week. Certain grand jury witnesses still have to go through their process. That may be done now. I don't know. Again, I'm exhausted. I've had a long day, so I don't know if that happened today. So bear with me on that. Okay. So, I'm really pissed about this, and not because I think Trump's a good person, but all this is, to me, is a possible or probable felony charge that is based on very flimsy legal theory, and is essentially a bookkeeping crime.
Yeah.
And that's not even the reason I'm upset, right? If he committed a crime, whatever, charge him with what makes sense. Committed a misdemeanor, pay the fine, whatever it is. But all I see this as is a chance for people like fucking Rob Reiner to get on Twitter and go, we finally got him! We got him! Never mind the fact that you didn't get him on anything that you said you were going to get him on for 6 fucking years. You had to wait until he committed a bookkeeping error while trying to pay off a porn star to keep her quiet during the 2016 election. I, as much as anybody else, think Donald Trump is a piece of shit and unfit to be president. But I am so over this shit. I am so over trying to put this man in prison. Knock it off. All you're doing is giving him more power. That's all you're doing. Every time they do this shit, they give him more power. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Corey,
bring up his that donation thing you were showing me.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just like this motherfucker has been under the legal microscope now for 6 fucking years. And and everyone was like, he's a criminal, this and that. Is he an upstanding citizen? No. He did things like rip off, immigrant like contractors and things like that. Sure. But for them to put him under a microscope, like every single little goddamn thing has been looked at. And this is what we're going to get him on? This is it? It's like Al Capone.
Corey, it's show me the man and I'll show you the crime.
Hey, check this out. So when he announced his bid to run for president, he was averaging $225,000 a day in donations. Since Saturday, when he went on Truth social media and said that he was going to get arrested on Tuesday, he's been averaging $500,000 a day in donations.
And these morons don't realize what they are doing. They want him arrested so bad that they don't even care and they don't notice, or they're completely oblivious or ignorant to how much more power they give him. You know what I want, Corey? And I think you want the same thing. And I think Bell wants the same thing. I just want Donald Trump to go away. I
Yeah.
want him to go away. Now
Yeah.
he's never gonna go away under his own power. And then you continue to give him more power. He has a base. He's built a cult. He is absolutely going to. And that's the thing. Is like, why do you think he goes to Truth Social and says, "I'm going to be arrested on Tuesday"? Because he is brilliant.
He's drumming up his base.
He's brilliant in that way. He is a branding fucking genius. And that, like, this is now what Donald Trump's brand is, which is I am this martyr who is being who's being sought after by the status quo and the establishment as an illegitimate villain. I'm the one fighting the corrupt deep state. I'm the one fighting the status quo and the establishment. Now you and I see right through it. We know it's bullshit.
I'm draining this swamp to fill it with my own sludge.
Yeah, or leave it exactly the same, which nobody ever talks about who is a Trump supporter. But like, all you're doing is perpetuating his fucking narrative. He is like, once again, Donald Trump is playing the establishment like a fiddle. And he's doing a brilliant job. He wants to be arrested. He wants to be arrested. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. He and in classic Trump, vintage Trump, after Ron Desantis came out and said his shit about the stripper and stuff like that, he posted truth, and it says Ron DeSanctimonious will probably find out about the false accusations and fake stories sometime in the future, as he gets older, wiser, and better known when he's unfairly and illegally attacked by a woman, even classmates that are,
Possible
in quotations,
man.
underage or possibly a man. I'm sure he will want to fight these misfits just like I do. And shared a photo of him.
He basically called Ron DeSantis gay.
A gay pedo. A gay pedo.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Called it, yeah. I don't know if Ron DeSantis is ready for that shit. I want to see that. I would like to see them two on the stage together.
He's going to be on Piers Morgan tomorrow night, or if you're listening to the recording, it would have been a few nights ago. It's going to be on a Thursday. And apparently Piers Morgan asks Ron DeSantis about Donald Trump, and he gives a really, really cringe answer.
Yeah, he's been trying so hard because he does have a good political compass as well on not ruffling the feathers of Trump and engaging Trump. But it's eventually it's going to happen. You know, the rubber's going to meet the road, and he's going to have to deal with Trump saying his shit. There's going to be Trump on the stage with him if he does run for president, barking and saying all the shit he does, and DeSantis is either going to look like a wimp or he's going to get dragged down into the muck with Trump.
Oh, come on, man. Will you shut up, man? Is he going to do that?
Yeah, you remember
shit?
even Biden got dragged down into the muck with that.
Oh, will you shut up, man? It's no joke. I'm not. You ever notice how he says that? I like that Dana Carvey quote on Bert Kreischer's podcast where he's doing the Biden impression. He's it's no joke. He's like, no one thinks it's a joke. That's how Biden says that all the time.
And it's like,
I'm not joking,
you're talking
man.
about war and thousands of people are dying. Like, we know it's serious.
I'm not joking. It's no joke. No one thinks it's a joke, Joe.
The fifth column recently was talking about how, like, when someone asked him, like, when he thought gay marriage was okay, and he's like, folks, listen, I was with my father, and he was dropping me off at school, and I'm serious.
Yeah.
And it's not a joke, folks.
I'm not joking.
I saw two men dressed nice in suits kiss each other, and they went their separate ways. And I asked my dad what that was, and my dad said, those are two men that love each other. And that's it. That's all. That's it. And that's when I had an epiphany. You called it an epiphany. And it's like, that's great and all, Biden, but you voted against it your entire life until it was politically viable to be for it.
Well, and then wasn't there another scenario where he told the same story, except he was talking to his son?
Yeah, I think so.
I swear that happened. I could be wrong. This is not, we're not going to fact check this, but somebody
his son that was killed in Iraq.
Yeah. What, what's funny is I shouldn't be laughing at that.
No, you shouldn't.
Because he does have a he does have a dead son, and also that his dementia presenting itself. Oh God!
Like, what time is it? He's like, 7 o'clock. He's like, I gotta go back into the crypt. It's sundown syndrome. They gotta lock all the doors on the White House so I don't disappear.
Oh God. Anyway, you think Trump's actually gonna get? You think Trump's actually gonna get arrested? You think he's gonna turn himself in or get arrested? I'm starting to doubt it at this point.
Yeah, I don't think so. He's gonna turn himself in and be out the next day, and then he's probably gonna get a misdemeanor.
Oh, and he'll bring a camera crew.
Yeah.
Breitbart's camera crew will be right behind him.
Chuck Lindell with a pillow.
So
like, put this in your cell.
I was reading actually, and it said, what did it say? Okay, so if he gets indicted, he'll get a surrender date. There's no definite surrender date. So when he surrenders, he's gonna go in, and usually they have to do the walk of shame with the handcuffs, and everybody takes pictures and shit. But because he's an ex-president, he gets the Secret Service.
Oh,
and then he gets the Secret Service treatment.
Oh wait, because he's an ex-president, Secret Service is gonna have to go to jail with him.
No.
Is that a thing though?
Okay.
That's a good question, right? Does Secret Service have to go to prison with?
No,
They get to stand outside his cell.
He will never go to jail. He'll never see 1 second of jail. So what's gonna happen is he's gonna get bonded out immediately. I forgot.
He's gonna bond
how
himself
they
out
said
immediately.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to pay any bail. There will be no bail. And even if he's a ward of the state, he's still going to be able to go back to his residence in Florida legally, because he will not be a flight risk, because everybody in the world knows what he looks like. And those are the words from the district attorneys who plan on charging him.
Oh, but Bell, they will be delivering on a campaign promise. You remember how those motherfuckers in New York that like ran on getting Trump arrested for something? They'll be delivering on their campaign promises. That's all we know.
That's
that
so piss
sure.
poor.
Okay, so according to Chat, GPT, if a president goes to jail, the Secret Service members who were assigned to protect the president would not be required to go to jail with him or her. The role of the Secret Service is to protect the president. They would not be held responsible for any actions or decisions made by the president. 1 minute. I mean, would they have to go into the prison to protect him?
I can't wait to see what it says.
Oh, if a former president were to be incarcerated, the Secret Service would no longer be responsible for providing protection for him or her. Once a president leaves office, they are no longer entitled to Secret Service protection. No, wait, no. They're entitled to Secret Service protection for their entire life, right?
That's what I always thought.
No, we've never
Except
seen
for
this.
limited circumstances outlined in the Former Presidents Act. Therefore, if a president were to be sent to prison, the Secret Service would not have any obligation or responsibility to provide protection for him or her inside the prison. It would be up to the prison authorities to ensure the safety and security.
Oh, good luck with that, law enforcement. Oh, we got to move on from Trump, Corey. You want to talk about the banks?
Yeah, let's talk about the banks.
This is you guys brought this up last week and spent a considerable amount of time on it while I was learning to become a fascist in Florida. And so I'm gonna let you take this over. I've got you guys, because you guys know a little bit more about this than me. I'm vaguely briefed on it. I know we had the Silicon Valley Bank collapse, and what was the other one? I don't remember the Signature Bank collapse. And there's been a lot of talk about like, oh my God, is this going to be a new banking crisis? And here's what I'll say without knowing anything. This is just my ignorant ass fucking opinion, because I don't know that much about this right now. When I look at inflation possibly becoming stagflation, and I look at the fact that two small banks have already collapsed, it stands to reason that a banking crisis may be around the corner.
Right, yeah. So that was the question we had. That was the question we had. Like last week. Is this the canary in the coal mine, or is this the fallout from that happening? Unfortunately, I think it might be more of a canary in the coal mine, because everyone is now going to be taking their money and putting into the bigger banks who they trust more because there's stricter regulations that their money will be protected because those banks have to have so much money in assets per liability or whatever, and the smaller banks don't.
And then the FDIC offers protection up to $250,000.
Right. Unless you're a big bank like SVB. And now the FDIC is going to cover all of their assets, which leads to us seeing a straight out of 2008, a crisis that sparks new battle between large banks and small banks, because the small banks are pissed because there's going to be assessment fees that are going to be charged to all these banks to cover the insurance, to cover all the banks in case they go insolvent. So an assessment fee, I had to go and ask ChatGPT.
Nice.
And they said, so I asked what assessment fees were when the bigger banks fail, or why would smaller banks have to pay assessment fees when bigger banks fail? And so the answer was assessment fees are fees that are paid by the banks to the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC, to fund the insurance provided by the FDIC to depositors in the event that a bank fails. The assessment fees are designed to ensure that the FDIC has the necessary resources to cover the cost of insuring deposits and managing bank failures. Smaller banks are required to pay assessment fees because they are also part of the banking system and benefit from the FDIC insurance protection that is provided to depositors. Even though smaller banks may not pose the same level of risk as larger banks, they can still fail, and the FDIC needs to have the resources to cover the costs associated with these failures. When a larger bank fails, the FDIC may need to pay out a large amount of money to cover the insured deposits held by the banks to customers. To ensure that the FDIC has the resources to cover these costs, it may impose additional assessment fees on all banks, regardless of their size, and this is done to present the cost of insuring deposits across the entire banking system, rather than placing the burden on a few larger banks. In summary, assessment fees are required from all banks, including smaller banks, to ensure the FDIC has the necessary resources to cover the cost of insuring deposits and managing bank failures. Even though smaller banks may not pose the same level of risk as larger banks, they still benefit from FDIC insurance protection and must contribute to the cost of maintaining its protection. So right now there's a bunch of there's the ICBA, which is the Independent Community Bank Association.
So if I can cut in real quick, it almost sounds like the equivalent, the banking equivalent of like small businesses being fucked over by more corporate taxation, while the larger corporations don't really suffer that much.
Real quick, Prison Mike asked if Trump got arrested yet, and you missed a whole segment out of it. And so far, nope, he didn't.
Not that we know of.
I dig the name, by the way, Prison Mike. I don't know if you guys are Office fans, but
oh yeah,
but Prison Mike.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Prison Mike. But yeah, he didn't get arrested yet. And but yeah, so the banking system, the smaller banks are up in arms. They're like, well, why the fuck are you guys going to charge us more for this when it wasn't us that did this? It was the big banks. And the FDIC, the Federal Reserve, Janet Yellen, all of them right now are currently saying, well, this isn't going to be $1, not $1 from the taxpayer, which we know is absolute bullshit. Because when these smaller banks or the bigger banks have to pony up more money to the FDIC, we're going to have to pay more money in banking fees and things like that anyways. So yeah, it's not our tax dollars, it's our other dollars.
I was gonna say, so technically not the tax dollar, but it's just like any other
bullshit.
It's just like any other capitalistic venture that is tied in with government. When the government comes in with a new regulation or a new tax or a new fee, it always gets passed on to not the taxpayer, but the consumer, which is the same fucking people.
Fucking exactly. And so one other question I had, so as I was thinking about this, because we saw SVB fail and fall apart because they had a bunch of their money put into bonds. Well, those bonds became junk once interest rates got rose because everyone's going to buy the new bonds with bigger interest rates versus the old bonds with virtually 0% interest rate on them, right?
Mhm.
So it made me question the idea that could we be seeing almost another sort of issue with the housing market because of the fact that right now with interest rates going up so fast, everyone who bought houses before the interest rates were rose got locked in at like super low interest rates. So
That's me.
Nobody's gonna refinance.
Hi,
You're not gonna
everyone.
refinance. Why would you refinance? And then get a higher interest rate on your loan? That's silly. So what this does is it locks in a large chunk of money these banks have, so they might have a liquidity issue. Couple that with the fact that now people aren't looking to buy homes because now the housing market prices are so high, coupled with higher interest rates. So we might see, now I'm not a financial advisor. This is me just trying to just figure out what the fuck's going on, and this is just something
Corey,
I came across.
You're an intellectual idiot.
Yeah. And so if we see a sudden increase in mortgage rates, if a sudden increase in mortgage rates cause a wave of defaults, banks may need to sell off assets to meet their obligations. This could create a liquidity crisis where banks may not have enough cash on hand to cover the immediate needs. If the situation proceeds, it may lead to insolvency and even bankruptcy. Yeah, so I mean, I'm hoping we don't see it, but we might see more of an issue from the banks, I guess, in my intellectual idiot definition.
I mean, I guess again, this is me also being an intellectual idiot that's not a financial advisor, and we'd love to talk to one if you want to talk to us. But I look at this and you think about smaller banks possibly failing. I mean, is there a worry of like more consolidation to larger banks?
Yeah, because that's not a good thing.
Is it almost? Well, it's almost natural, right? Because you're even having certain financial advisors saying, "Hey, well, you should first of all spread your money around." That's what almost any financial advisor is going to tell you. But also, maybe put your money
not
in
us
larger
though.
banks. Maybe put your money in larger banks, and it's like, okay, do I want the large banks to have more power? I don't think I do. In the financial system, I'd like to.
And that's
see
what
more
this is
small banks and
ultimately
credit unions.
doing.
Yeah,
that's what this is ultimately doing. Is now everyone's taking their money and going to the bigger banks, centralizing the money, giving the banks more power. Yeah, it's not a good situation, and it's fucked up that our government is so incompetent that they had to rely on the Federal Reserve to just go, we're just going to charge everyone more money until they stop spending it. Like that's what we're doing right now. That's our option.
Yeah.
Like never mind trying to streamline supply chain crises, going after price gougers, trying to break up monopolies. Our government's too incompetent and corrupt and in bed with all these corporations that they don't want to hurt their donors.
Which is
so
where
by proxy, they'll just rely on the Federal Reserve to just hurt mine and yours pocketbooks.
Which is where the libertarians are right? So you look at, because I look at government policy a lot of times, sometimes from Republicans and sometimes from Democrats, and I go, wow, that's a really virtuous policy. The problem isn't the virtue behind the policy most of the time. The problem is the utter incompetence of government to make it take place, or in sometimes not even just incompetence, but also corruption, right? Because you're in bed with the banking industry probably more than any other industry outside of maybe oil.
Right.
And even that's probably pretty close. So yeah, it's never the virtue behind the policy, because that's what you get, right? That's what you get a lot of times. It's like, well, if you don't do this policy, like whatever it is, you don't care about poor people or old people or whatever the thing is. It's like, no, it's because I see the second, third, and fourth order consequences of this policy down the road, and which the government doesn't see, and which renders it ineffective, at best ineffective, and at worst harmful.
Yeah.
I don't know what I just said. I'm really tired. I hope that made sense.
It sounded good on my end, bud. Yeah, so this buy gold, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a financial advisor.
Buy gold. Buy crypto.
Get some
Boy,
NFTs.
that's really taken a hard nosedive, hasn't it? The whole
actually,
crypto boom.
Let me just so we're not talking out of our ass.
Well, no, I think there have been more. You can look it up while I'm talking here, but I believe there actually have been more investments in crypto because, again, it seems like there's this weird pendulum swing where like you stop trusting the banks and fiat money and start pumping it into crypto. But I don't think crypto is. I think there's a lot of room for fraud in crypto, as we saw with FTX.
Yeah.
So
a year ago, crypto, one Bitcoin was 47 grand, and now it's down to 27 grand.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still like, if you got in early enough, you're still sitting okay.
Yeah, you're still good. Yeah, you're still good. No, I get it.
Listen to this, Bill. You might actually like this story. So do you remember about a year ago or so? Actually, no, it's probably 2, maybe 3 years ago now. It's whenever I got surgery on my shoulder. When Dogecoin was going from 0.00027 cents up to like 7 cents.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like on Facebook going to the moon and shit like that. I had an aunt hit me up. And she was asking me about it. And I was telling her like, yeah, it might do this. It might do that. Go ahead and buy some or whatever. And I saw her recently at a baby shower. Shout out to Auntie Avenel if she's watching this at all or listening. And she goes, yeah, because I didn't really talk to her since then. And she goes, hey, the night of Mephistopheles. And so my aunt was hitting me up and asking me about Dogecoin, and I came off with the whole like disclaimer of I'm not a financial advisor. And and so she bought into Dogecoin when I was talking about it to her. And all of her coworkers and stuff, she said, were telling her that her nephew is an idiot and all this stuff about Dogecoin. But she bought it at the right time and sold it at the right time and bought herself a truck. Like she made enough money.
Yeah, but like that's the whole point about crypto, though. Like it's at a point where it's like, okay, you don't trust the banks. It's almost like if you don't trust the banks, take it all out and take it to the fucking blackjack table. I mean, that's
that's literally
really
what Bitcoin is. Yeah,
that's what crypto is at this point.
Buddy,
yeah.
She hit black. And she ended up being able to buy herself a truck.
She put it all in and got blackjack, eh?
The night said Trump is playing Clash of Clans on Twitch. His walls are all maxed.
I think I'd pay to I think I'd pay to see that. What's Biden playing though? Don't Minecraft. Wake Daddy.
Solitaire.
Solitaire.
And losing. Why are there jokers in this deck? It's no joke.
This card's 2 different colors.
Biden should be live, but he forgot.
That's pretty great. That's pretty great. I think Night of
Welcome to the show, Night.
Like our show.
If you can, listen to the podcast or go back and watch the live stream. We're about to be wrapping up here in a minute, but
first 34 minutes are brutal because my audio's fucked up, but we fixed it. We're good.
Fucking idiot.
Yeah, I told you I was exhausted. I warned everyone. It's no joke.
Folks, I'm serious.
No one thinks it's a joke. What did you want to close out with, Corey? Do we have anything else?
I'm glad to see Rick Hershey out and landing on his feet. Desantis is a fascist.
Stafford. What? Jesus Christ. I'm thinking about the Detroit Lions from 2017. Stanford had a quite a month with the DEI video of the with the judge.
Oh yeah.
God damn it! I can't even speak right now.
Another fascist? Yeah. So you missed in the beginning. DeSantis is like now trying to pull liquor licenses from places because they have drag shows. And if you've listened to our show or watched our show, we have mixed feelings about the idea of letting kids and go and stuff like this, like personally. But the idea to give the government the power to do shit like that is absolutely wrong. If you don't want your kid at a drag show, don't take your kid. We don't need daddy government to come in and make laws and make other American citizens criminals over something that could be seen as trivial as that.
We're trying to grow the radical independent movement as two intellectual idiots fostering political and cultural literacy. I know what we can close with.
Lay it out, Jen.
Episode 6 of the Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling.
Oh, there you go.
I think we could touch on that briefly. You're caught up on it. I don't know if Bell is, but I'm caught up on it.
Bell doesn't listen to podcasts. He doesn't even listen to this one.
He's weird. He's on one, but he doesn't listen to them.
I do sometimes. Sometimes.
So what I loved about the 6th episode of the Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling is that it completely threw a fucking atomic bomb on all of the bullshit WAPO op-eds about the Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling. Why do we need to listen to anything that has J.K. Rowling in it? She's a bigot. And this entire episode 6 was literally the entire episode was 2 interviews of trans people sitting there and going, look, it's okay to be a little bit upset about J.K. Rowling's views on trans people
because of her influence.
Because of her influence. But it's also okay to kind of understand where she's coming from, which is a very adult way to look at the situation of transgender, of transitioning, particularly when it comes to youth. And when it comes to feminists like J.K. Rowling being worried about predatory men using loopholes to make their way into female spaces.
Yeah, and having that pause shouldn't all of a sudden cast you as a homophobe because of the fact, like we talked about earlier.
Or transphobe, yeah.
When everyone's a fascist, when everyone's a racist, when everyone's a Nazi, then no one's a fascist, no one's a racist, no one's a Nazi.
Well,
we need to be able to distinguish the real homophobes like Desantis, who is trying to just make people illegal. We need to make sure that that stuff isn't acceptable in our country. But if someone is like, I don't know if I'm going to let my kid take experimental medicine until he's an adult, that person's not a homophobe.
No,
and we have to distinguish between the two.
And the way the 2 interviews in the 6th episode of the Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling, what I took out of that is, it's legitimately all about understanding, right? And so many of these people, they don't have children of their own, and it makes sense to me for like a Gen X parent or like an older millennial parent, because millennials, hey, let's realize that the oldest millennials are in their early 40s now. Mm-hmm. Like we're not kids anymore, right? Older millennial parents and Gen X parents being concerned about their children making a decision at such a young age that could ultimately harm them and be irreversible, and they don't want them to make that mistake. Now, whether or not that child is actually making a mistake or whether they're doing what's right for them, it is a completely reasonable concern for a parent to have.
Yeah,
it is a loving, reasonable concern, and it's so. That's the thing about this podcast, which I recommend everybody listen to, The Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling. It is such a nuanced discussion because it's it's still very, very fresh. It's very, very new, and the idea of transitioning, particularly when you're talking about children, it's just really new. There's just not enough research. There's just not enough data. There are enough detransitioners to make you go, okay, let's talk about this. There are enough people that are happy with their transition from a very young age to go, okay, maybe it's okay to support this, but you have to keep talking about it. You can't just throw the word bigot out there, and you can't just, throw the word groomer out there. Right. Just because somebody has an opinion on it. I honestly don't know what mine is yet. And that's why I'm interested in the subject. And that's why I try to get so many different angles on it. You have a young son, Corey. I don't have any kids yet, but I can imagine what you might go through if you happen to go through this with CJ at someday in your life. I would venture to guess you don't even know how you would react.
Right. Because when you have a kid, you love your kid to death. Like you would literally take a bullet for him. And if you're pushed in one direction or another, that like doing something for them is for the betterment of their health or a detriment to their health, like you're kind of like, you're doing your best. You're navigating with a compass in the Bermuda Triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Back to the fascism comment or the topic.
Oh, we're gonna talk about fascists again.
Yeah,
all right, I can't wait.
The Knight of Mephistopheles said, "Fascism is, of course, also a collection of ideas. It is not an atomized thing. I think it has a romantic side too, don't you think?" And I was like, like as I'm thinking about it, then like, if you're on the right side of the fascist movement, maybe it's convenient, maybe not romantic, but convenient. If you're in the, you fit in the cookie cutter outline that the fascism is trying to convey. But I like the idea that we live in a country where free thought, I mean, obviously it's constantly under attack and it's something we have to fight for. But free speech, free thought, free minds is like at the core of our country. And I like the inconvenience of us not just streamlining and doing something like the CCP, because everyone is like going, well, wait a minute, hold on, about every single topic. And, it's messy. We argue about it. But for an example, climate change, right? If one group had their way, we would right now be having power outages and things like that because everything would be ran on strictly just windmills and solar panels. But it takes the other side to go, no, we're not just going to allow that. But that other side is also now coming out with more fuel efficient ways to do things. We are now seeing water conservation and AI, that's Silicon Valley, mostly liberals, is that is getting intertwined with farming to make crops more effective and things like that. And like we need both sides to like argue out in public to come up with a good solution that's like not necessarily in the middle, but you need to have all the ideas from every angle to talk about the whataboutisms, to talk about the possible shortfalls, the possible pitfalls, the benefits. You gotta be able to weigh the benefits and the difficulties or the negative aspects of every topic. And when you have a fascist community, there's no room for that.
Yeah, I mean,
is that all right? Does that sound pretty good?
No. I'm happy to listen, but like fascism on its surface is the centralization of power. That's what fascism is. I would never, ever, ever support that in any way, shape, or form.
That's why I said it's convenient. It's a hell of a lot more convenient.
No, okay. So wait a minute.
It gets when I say that, I mean like when there's no room for discourse or debate, things are going to get done a lot quicker. Things are going to be more of a straight line because there's only one outlet that's making the decisions. Corey, I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying it's convenient.
It's
more convenient for me to get McDonald's for dinner, but that's not as good for me as making a home cooked meal.
Right. It's convenient like fascism is convenient in the same way that fucking communism is convenient. Right.
Well, they go hand in hand.
Like
to be fair, true communism's never been tried.
It's power of the people as opposed to power to the people as opposed to centralized power. But there's unbelievable amounts of corruption in communism, as we've seen. But like I look at it like so you take a look at a place like China, which of course is not fascist, but they say socialist, but they're communist. And you look at
a place
they're not
like fascist.
You yeah, they're not.
You sure?
Well, I guess you know what? It's actually an interesting debate. It's actually an interesting debate
because they like to just make one straight line of just welding people into their apartments, and they all have that social credit thing.
But Corey,
And even when their billionaires step on a line, they get silenced.
It's for the greater good, which is what
every
makes it
fascist
communist.
thinks what they're doing is for the greater good.
Here's what I was going to say.
Desantis thinks what he's doing is for the greater good.
Here's what I was going to say. We've had this talk before about the difference between China and the United States, right? So China can put a skyscraper up in what seems like 3 fucking weeks.
Well, they got billions of people, Dan. They need to find a place to lock them up.
Hang on. Can I finish? Please, can I finish? Here, it takes us 15 fucking years to put up the same skyscraper. And it's because
we argue about the name that's going to be on the building.
When it comes to, when it comes to the free market, right? You have more freedom in capitalism and a free market, but you are less efficient because there's always more red tape to go through. When you have something like centralized power or even communism, there is no red tape. It just goes up. The state pays for it. So you can either be free, which is what we have, or you can be efficient. You cannot have both things.
There is what is Tom Sowell? There is no solutions, only trade-offs.
Yeah, you can have one or the other. You can either be super efficient or you can be super free. Forgive me, but I'll take the freedom.
Yeah.
I'll go with the freedom every day of the week.
Because for some reason it still is not as inefficient as our government is, for as inefficient as the freedom that we have is, because that creates a bunch of pitfalls and infighting. We're still, like, comparatively, if you live in America and you're making like $30K a year, in America, you're
in the top.
That's poverty levels, but worldwide, you're still like in the top 1%.
You are in the top 1%. If you make $30,000 a year, you're in the top 1% globally. Interesting, isn't it?
Let me go complain about it on my iPhone.
Made by children.
Just kidding. I get the new Galaxy.
Anyway.
So he responded. So the problem of minorities is that it undermines the romantic worldview of the majority. In a distant past, the differences between men and women were celebrated. There was a wonderful dynamic between men and women. Emancipation was undermined. Emancipation has undermined this, the relatively few women who wanted to emancipate. And the idea that our gender is choice also detaches us from our connection with nature. They are all things that want to transcend nature, but with that comes a great sacrifice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a disagreement with any of that. It's
yeah.
nuanced,
So
right?
it kind of goes with what we were saying. Like it makes things more messy. It makes things more slappy. It's not. Let me think.
No, Corey, it's the argument that, like, and I don't necessarily agree with this, but you've heard the argument that, like, being trans is a luxury, right? I'm just using being trans as an example because it's just at the top of the American lexicon at the moment. But, like, being trans is a luxury, and it kind of goes to what Matt Walsh said in his documentary, What is a Woman, where he goes to, like, these broke ass African tribes, and they're like, he's like, can a man be a woman? And they laugh at him because they don't have the same types of luxuries that we have to be able to consider these things. It's like, you're literally fighting for your next fucking meal. I'm not really worried about what gender I am today. Do I need to go out and collect berries, or do I need to go kill an antelope?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a privileged problem.
Yeah. And for any new listeners to the show, I don't support Matt Walsh in any way. I don't endorse him in any way.
There's a lot in that comment, Knight, to chew on. And I could tell, actually, he's a deep thinker.
Think about
it. I appreciate that. I do. I'm reading it, and this is something I'm probably gonna try to mull over for a couple of days.
I was about to say, there's a whole episode right there.
Yeah, there's a whole episode just in that comment. Yeah, yeah, there is.
It's almost like
I've read it.
And then he goes, "I'm just thinking out loud here."
It's almost like it's almost like Knight is Chat GPT. Here we are.
No, it's almost like Knight's an intellectual idiot, like the rest of us.
Yeah. Anyway,
welcome
Corey,
to the show. Oh, you're not gonna get banned from this.
Not from us.
No way,
buddy.
No.
Tell the people where they can find us, Corey. We got to get out of here. Night, we're
And
happy
not
you
get
joined
banned
us.
from-
Please check out the podcast, download some older episodes, and come join the conversation as often as you can.
Yeah, Libservative Podcast is found on all social media and podcast platforms. Our website is libservativeshow.com. We can be found at Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Instagram and Twitter at LibservativePod. Our TikTok videos can be found at Libservative Podcast. And you can reach out directly at libservativepod@gmail.com. Subscribe today.
This
And
has
if you
been
like the show,
Libservative.
give a rating. You know, it helps with the algorithms.
Damn it.
Tell a
You always
friend.
pause. We have the most awkward endings.
I do listen to podcasts sometimes.
Bell wanted, for the record, he wants to cry. He wants to tell his side of the story.
This has been Libservative, the show of intellectual idiots fostering political and cultural literacy. For Bell the Body Snatcher, he is Corey Walsh.
And he is Dan Griffin.
This has been Libservative, and we are out of here.